First things first, Alabama State Bar Rules of Professional Conduct, Rule 7.2e requires the following language in all attorney communications. No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers. I'm Harry Steele, backwoods Southern lawyer. My partner Paul Rip is here with me from the Rip Report. And if you are a Reigns fan, you can stop watching now. Reigns is once again missing in action. I'm sure harassing the people of the governing body in his area. So, Paul, I wanted to start off with an article that we put up on our Facebook page real quick. It's Alabama's cost of power. I mean, influence is high. Archibald wrote this column, I believe it was April 2011, in which he chronicles Alabama Power Company spending at almost $20 million a year to sway public or political opinion, federal documents show. So the entity that he said that he got this information from is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. I tried to get a hold of them and get an update on these figures, and they did not know what I was talking about. So we'll be following up with that with the Public Service Commission. I think they're probably the proper people to speak to that, or the people who should have that information. So, Paul, I'm going to turn it over to you for a minute. Why don't you take a topic?
Okay, thank you, Paul Rip with the Rip Report, Court of Public Opinion. And this is the only court in Baldwin County where you can be guaranteed that your voice will be heard. A couple of things that are happening. First of all, the film festival in Fairhope between the 14th and 17th. It's been gaining momentum each year. I encourage people that might be interested to check and see what films are available. The second thing is last week on the Rip Report in Baldwin County Legal, there's other blog sites in Baldwin County, and we share a lot of our posts. And some of our posts are all different views. You know, their opinions. We're not necessarily putting those out there for you to endorse. We're just trying to give you the general information. But I find it curious when we do these posts, which posts resonate and which ones don't. This last week, there was a post, I believe that was by Josh Moon, and it had a picture of the Trump balloon in Tuscaloosa and it being slashed. And I was amazed. 50, 60 people comment on the balloon being slashed. And then Mr. Mo Brooks, who's the representative of the 5th District, he wants to give the balloon popper a patriotism medal. And of course, this is after the prosecution of him slashing the balloon. But he wants to give him an award before there's any prosecution or what the result is of what this man did. Whether he did it was wrong or right, that's not what I'm arguing about or making mention about. What I'm trying to make mention of is that we're telling you about public corruption. We're bringing up city councils and different people that are acting in different ways that are not in the best interest of the community. We don't get as many posts or likes to that or any comments. But yet somebody pops a balloon at a football game and everybody is interested in it. So it kind of just shows you the mentality of what's going on around here.
At least he's watching our stuff.
Well, yeah. All right, back to you, Harry.
So I wanted to talk about a project. If anybody has watched our previous podcast, I talked a little bit about the fact that a lot of people down in Gulf Shores and Orange Beach are not happy about the traffic that they have to deal with. And there was an article this week where Gulf Shores and the state of Alabama are working together to circumvent the terms of a lawsuit settlement between the state and an environmentalist group in which the state agreed not to build any additional roadways through the Gulf State Park. Robert Kraft, the Gulf Shores mayor, and Chris Blankenship, who is the Alabama Department of Conservation and Natural Resources director, say that $21.7 million from the Restore Act will be spent on this project. Any comments? 21.7 million. And I think this has to do with, that bad curve right there.
Correct.
Canal Road.
Right.
They're talking about taking that school traffic, and instead of going through that neighborhood, going around the perimeter of the park, which I don't see how, if you make an asphalt track all the way around the park, how that's good for the environment of the park.
No, and I know that
might as well build a wall around it.
There's a lot of opposition too.
All right, Paul, your turn. Go for
All
it.
right, let's go back to our favorite publication, Lanyap, this week. One of the things in Lanyap is letters to the editor. I always love to read the letters to the editor. And Mr. Mark Roshenko wrote in from Fairhope. The title of his letter is, Have We Lost Our Way? And I would totally agree with him that we have. It's more or less about planning and zoning, and his particular complaint is a neighborhood that, or a PUD that's being introduced now, where 3 houses per acre are going to be in that neighborhood, when the surrounding neighborhoods, the sizes of the lots are not anywhere near as small. 3 lots on an acre is really jamming them in there. Also, people need to follow up on that, because Fairhope is in just absolute high gear when it comes to PUDs and what's developing in that area. Also in the Lanyap, there's a good article, Damn the Torpedoes, by Rob Holbert. His title is A Spineless Run for Congress, and he's speaking about Mr. Sessions entering into the Senate race, which I think was to be expected by some. Also, another interesting article is...
Let's talk about that for a second, because here's my take on this.
All right.
The one group that Sessions is not going to pull any supporters from is who? Roy Moore.
Oh,
he just helped Roy Moore take the field, because he might pull some folks from Merrill or from Byrne or Tuberville. I mean, seriously, I love you, Tubbs, but I ain't gonna vote for you for Senate. Anyway, I was wondering what your thoughts were on that.
Well, actually, John Merrill is the Secretary of State. And I'd like to remind everybody that it was John Merrill who stepped in the 2016 election for mayor in Fairhope, and came down and, so to speak, audited that. Not audited, but he was present to make sure that election, when it was
certified or whatever.
Correct.
Okay.
And the main reason being is, in years past, there had been a lot of rumors and a lot of suspicion about the elections in Fairhope being rigged. So he came down at the last minute. He oversaw those elections, and lo and behold, we got a new mayor, and it substantiated to a lot of us that somebody had been tinkering with the election. So I really think Mr. Merrill's got a feather in his cap as far as that goes with me, for sure. Also under Hidden Agenda by Ashley Trice. And this is something everybody should read, and this is over the annexation in Mobile that they're talking about right now. Annexation is going to be coming up here in Fairhope, and on Baldwin County side, there's a lot of arguments about it. So you might want to read those articles and see the pros and cons of both.
All right, I want to go back to, don't we have an image of this, the pedestrian bridge and all that? So I don't know that this image actually shows what we're talking about, but it'll give you a general idea. East of the Jack Edwards Airport and Gulf Shores, on the north side of the Intracoastal Waterway, Gulf Shores heard an application for another PUD, Paul. 218 acres. They're going to build 6-story condominiums, and they're saying it's going to be 21 residential units per acre. You want to talk about some density. So here's the kicker, Paul. Guess what year the Corps of Engineers approved these 15 mixed-use projects?
1919.
2000, might as well be. 2006. What in the hell all's changed in that canal since 2006? All kinds of things.
Well, that's a problem. You see these people get these approvals, and then you're sitting in council chambers, and this thing comes up, and you say, well, when were these apartments approved? And they say, oh, back in 09. Well,
So-
what happened between 09 and now?
All right, so right now what you got is you got like a little marina down there, and you got Lulu's, right?
Right.
So the approval that came from the Corps of Engineers in 2006 was for 15 individual mixed use projects, 3 major marinas with 318 boat slips, 3,175 condos, and 27,000 square feet of retail.
Say those condos again.
3,175 condos. Now, of course, that's spread over
Correct.
a bigger area than this. Just this 218 acres. But you know, this is going to substantially change the flavor of that part of the canal, and which may be what they've had in the plans all along. So while we're talking about that, I just wanted to go over a few more particulars about it. It looks like the council considered that rezoning on November 12th. And of course, the environmental impact statement was done back in the mid 2000s, which makes no sense to me. All right, Paul, take one now.
Well, I went to a city council meeting this last week because one of the projects I'm really looking at that I was trying to pay attention to is the Gayfer Village Partners. But I noticed something on the council agenda. I've complained about this for years, and it still ends up the same way. And the public, they're not. I don't believe that that they're being transparent when we have these public hearings and final adoption. For instance, we have one public hearing where the individuals' names are named as to who is involved with the request and so on and so forth. Then we have a final adoption that comes up next, and the same thing. The individuals' names are listed, and it looks all authentic. Then we get to the third one. There's no names. It's only Gayfer Village Partners. It does not say that Judge Snedeker and his law partner, Attorney Hicks, are the ones that are developing the project. So you go to a meeting and you see this final adoption, and it's Gayfer Village Partners, and you have no idea who these people are, or it's ABC LLC. You don't know who they are. They should be, the final adoptions or public hearings, all of this should be out in front so where people know who is involved. There are people in Fairhope that do not know that the municipal judge who was appointed by the council is now going to depend on the council's approval for this project. And then one of the other things that was mentioned that I thought there was a lot of irony too. They also struck that maybe they added it after I left that night, but they also struck number 10, which is a resolution that the city of Fairhope adopts a resolution to support World Kindness USA to establish a kinder and more peaceful community. I guess they struck.
Fairhope in a
That's right.
nutshell.
I guess they struck that because they couldn't live up to it. But anyway, that's what was on the council agenda. Now, they did also finally pass the budget. This is 4 years. This council has not had a budget on time.
You got a total on
yeah.
that budget?
I don't see the final total in this particular article, but the budget was approved finally after about 7 or 8 weeks behind. And, of course, that also was behind their purchase of the recreation property. But I'll get to that in just a second.
I feel sure you will.
Go ahead.
So I want to go throw that image back up. We're going to take you back to the Intracoastal Waterway. Federal DOT has awarded a grant project, and this is a damn mouthful. The BUILD grant, Better Utilizing Investment to Leverage Development Program. We need to leverage some development in Gulf Shores, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing going on down there. So, number one, the first, and it's $14,404,000. So the first part of the project that they're going to complete is an additional lane southbound on 59. I think that's from County Road 12 south to the bridge. I don't know why in the hell you'd want to put an extra lane and then bottleneck it at a bridge, but, you know, I'm not a transportation engineer. The second thing that they're going to do, which seems monumentally expensive in my mind, looking at the height of the bridges that we have over the Intracoastal now, they're going to build a pedestrian bridge. And is that image up where everybody can see it from the curve there, straight across up towards the airport? And then you see like a little plaza or whatever that they have drawn as a concept. And so the other thing that they're going to do in this project is go up to County Road 6 and make it into a 4-lane boulevard. So some major changes, some major headaches. If you people are worried about traffic down there, better gear up. Is what they're doing all this work on County Road 6 and 59. And I don't know how they're going to deal with traffic on Canal Road while they're building a pedestrian bridge right there. But I'm sure they got it all figured out.
They ought to invest as well in a little map that they can give to the locals on how to get to the beach. You know, which buildings they can go between to get to the beach.
Well, they do have a map of, I know Gulf Shores has a map of their public access, public beach accesses.
Mm-hmm.
So can I keep going, or you got something?
Well, I got plenty.
All right. Well, so I want to talk a little bit about what's going on here in Baldwin County. You know, you heard our allegations about what all the county commission from the 2010 until our recent election in 2018. And I just want to give you guys some budget figures. And Nick, can you throw those up? Give me those 2011 audit. And these are audited figures by the examiners of public accounts. We put the links to these on our Facebook page if you want to go look at them for yourself. But here's the bottom line. Year end September 30th, 2011, the revenues for general government with the county commission was $49 million. The expenditures under general government were $20 million, and public safety were $21 million. So let's fast forward to last September 30th when they took a snapshot and gave us that audit. Do you have 2018 up, Nick? All right. So the revenues went from $49 million to $60 million. General government expenditures went from $20 million to $21 million, and public safety went from $21 million to $27 million. So that should show you right there. And it's like we've been telling you guys, the budget is a plan. The plan is to continue to spend more and more money on law enforcement in this county.
$6 million it went up.
Since September 30th, 2011, the Sheriff's Department budget has been increased by $6 million, while the rest of the general government has increased by $1 million.
1 to 6.
Yes. Oh, and just so you know, Act number 2017-419, this bill was sponsored by Representatives McMillan, Shiver, Baker, Faust, Jackson, and Davis. And what this general act of local application does is it gives our good sheriff an extra $20,000 a year for his salary and expenses.
Well, you know, the thing that I wonder about is we got that many millions in the Sheriff's Department. I have yet to see one single prosecution of white-collar crime or political corruption. Not one. What does that take? Another $5 million?
I don't know. Well, and here's something else that I have I don't guess I can say I have a problem with it. what's a good way to say it? It's concerning to me that the sheriff's department or the sheriff has created an entity called the Major Crimes Unit. Okay, so the MCU is what would you call it? Would you call it a theoretical entity? It doesn't actually exist. It doesn't actually have a facility where it functions. So there are 3 instances when the MCU kicks into high gear and starts doing whatever it is they're supposed to be doing. So it's my understanding it's 20 senior detectives from the sheriff's department are all designated to the MCU. So if they find a murder victim in Baldwin County and there's no apparent suspect, they will come in regardless of the jurisdiction and take the case over, which sounds like a good idea to me. The second part is what stinks to high heaven. So guess who is investigating? So, you've talked about this a couple times, Paul. What's the kid's name from Louisiana that got shot dead in the middle of the interstate?
I won't recall it right
well,
now.
So,
I have to look at
so
my notes.
Anywhere else in Alabama where a sheriff's deputy shoots somebody, they would call in the ABI to investigate that shooting. Do you agree with that?
Right.
But here in Baldwin County, where we have a theoretical separate entity, I think that there are some. So the sheriff is the vice chair of the MCU board, and there are several different law enforcement people from around the county who sit on the board. But theoretically, and I think Lanyap had asked for these, had asked for the body cam footage, and had served the sheriff with the request, the open records request.
Right. So
they had a hearing, and one of our judges decided that they should have served the MCU. So it was an ineffective service or an ineffective request. So here's, and I don't want to second guess anybody, but here's how it follows in my mind. The sheriff is a constitutional officer, okay? He has constitutional immunity granted him by the state of Alabama. That constitutional immunity, that protection is given to the deputies and all the people with arrest power under him. So what I'm saying is if you serve the sheriff to get information that somebody with this constitutional immunity enjoys, then you've satisfied the requirement in my mind. I don't know why we'd be looking to legitimize this MCU idea. And of course, the sheriff's been going all over the state trying to tell everybody that it's such a good idea that everybody needs an MCU, kind of like we need a cop in every school and all that kind of.
So this would be like sheriff's department would be investigating the sheriff's department to give a conclusion on what they decided.
Whether it was a good shooting or not. And just imagine a scenario where, okay, I can't even think of anything that asinine. I can't even think of a good example that would be worse than the one that we're talking about. So I don't like it. I don't think it's good practice. In accounting we talk about internal controls. And I think that's how they need to be looking at things over on the law enforcement side of the ledger, too. There need to be internal controls to make sure that the people investigating aren't guys that are sitting in the squad room next to these people the next day. It needs to be a critical, independent eye looking at these police shootings.
The thing that gets me is that we keep coming back to the fact that Baldwin County does things different than the rest of the state. And it makes you wonder, what in the world is going on? How did we fall so far behind? I mean, be it sewer regulation or whatever it is, qualifications for sheriffs.
I can tell you exactly where we fell behind when we had that 2010 election and these developers took over our county commission.
Right.
And it's been Katie bar the door ever since.
Right.
Development. And then you've got these small municipalities with hardly any staff, okay, like the city of Loxley. Who, look at this map back here. Loxley, land-wise, 2/3 of the city of the corporate limits are north of I-10. Who would have known that without looking at this map? I mean, you know, when you think of Loxley, hell, they got 2 caution lights.
Yeah.
But, you know, they've got 6,000 residential units, single-family houses approved, and another 7,000 apartments approved on that Golden Triangle.
And that's just Loxley.
And that's just Loxley. Oh, and guess when the PUD on that was approved?
When?
Back 2004, I believe. We'd have to go back. I did a pretty good, a pretty rough job on it this time, but last time I think I went through all of those dates. All right, Paul.
Well, that's where the communities, that's where a lot of these municipalities are being taken advantage of. These plans and PUDs that are approved, and 5, 10, 15 years later, they come back up without having to go back through the whole process.
And it might not be a good place for a PUD anymore.
Correct.
I mean, there might be a concrete plant sitting right next to where you're talking about putting multifamily.
Well, it was just like you're talking about with the environmental impact statement down there in Gulf Shores. Are you telling me nothing has changed since 2006? I mean, that's ridiculous.
Not that the Corps of Engineers seems to care about.
But, well, get back to one of the other things that struck me on that kindness thing that the council didn't want to talk about is that the handed out a flyer, Ways to Be Kind. They list 24 different things. 23 is practice doing something kind each day. And 24 is to serve on a Fairhope City Board. Well, I can tell you, I know many, many Fairhope City boards that, and we're going to be talking about boards, by the way, that actually they don't have, they hold no water because the council overrides them one way or another. But let's be kind and try to be nice here, okay? All right, so I'll move into one other thing where I'll be a little bit nicer, okay? Not that much, though. Recreation land was, and Fairhope, the recreation land that they purchased for $2.65 million was done by 3 different councilmen, Burrell, Boone, and Brown, literally by themselves. I mean, not one single solitary person other than those involved with trying to get that recreation land spoke up for it. Now, all of the council voted much earlier on to apply for a grant with the Park Service and come up with a connectivity master plan workshop. And this was basically a connectivity plan, which was bicycles, foot traffic, not necessarily vehicles. So I went to, now they closed on the land for the recreation on November 1st, I believe it was, on a Friday. The Connectivity Master Plan workshop, which they all agreed to do, was on Thursday, November 7th. I went to the meeting. Not one single council person was there. Not one. And what I gleaned from the connectivity plan was that there was an effort. You've got city staff in there. You had 4 or 5 tables filled up. You had planning and zoning in there to answer questions. It was a very, very good meeting. But the one thing that I took away from the meeting is that what they were trying to do is this connectivity is to tie all of this together, these parks together, the walking from town, etc. And the property that they bought goes against every bit of the plan. They only had 6 more days where they could have participated in the workshop. But the council did not want to participate in the workshop. They wanted to close on the property before the workshop, regardless of what the community thought and regardless of what the connectivity or the park people suggested. So now we got a park, and now the connectivity plan has to be completely altered to try to put this piece of property in, which will remain vacant for years. And $2.65 million is going to be a lost opportunity on a lot of infrastructure needs and different things in Fairhope.
I wanted to follow up a little bit on that. So the police chief in Foley, Alabama, Chief David Wilson, is chairman of the Major Crimes Unit of Baldwin County's Board of Directors. And the 3 instances when the Major Crimes Unit is activated in Baldwin County is for one of 3 reasons: an officer-involved shooting, the death of a suspect while in custody. Well, of course, we want the sheriff's department guys investigating that, and or a homicide where a suspect has not been immediately identified. So, Paul, yesterday, I was in Montgomery for the Beasley Allen Conference and Expo for private practice attorneys.
They let you in?
They did. Nobody searched me going into the conference, the Renaissance Conference Center up in Montgomery, thank goodness. They must not have gotten the word how dangerous I am. But it was kind of a reunion of sorts. I saw a lot of great folks that I hadn't seen in a long time: Bo Linder, Meredith Markham, Terrell McCants, Catherine King, Catherine Henry, Chris Burrell. Just a lot of good folks from that I went to law school with. Our keynote speaker was Dr. David Bronner, who is the director of the retirement systems of Alabama. And, of course, I didn't have an opportunity to he actually had bodyguards when he was leaving. He was escorted out, and because I did want to have the opportunity to talk to him about him ripping those damn gas tanks up down there by the Grand Hotel. But anyway, he gave a really good speech, and one of the things that I want people to think about, one of the things I took away from his speech, is about the situation. And Paul and I agreed we would not talk about national politics, but right. But you did touch the Trump balloon tar baby, so I'm going to take a little latitude on this one.
Fair enough.
So back after the Iron Curtain fell, Ukraine was one of the countries that actually had nuclear weapons, and we talked them into giving those up, and we said we will protect you. So now that we've reneged on that promise, you've got other countries out there like Japan, how about the South Koreans? What would happen to them if we just said, if North Korea wants to come across the demilitarized zone, you guys are good luck to you. So just that kind of the fact that creates instability in the world and uncertainty, and it's not good for our markets, regardless of what the dang Fed does from day to day. All right, Paul, what else you got?
Well, I want to go back over one thing I mentioned before, and I don't think that it got the attention it should, and it was big news for the future of Mobile Bay, and that was where Senator Jones had come up with some new measures to establish competitive grants for states seeking to set up ways for counties to share data about water quality, pollution sources, and water infrastructure, particularly here in our area. All of these municipalities have different problems. This all came about by legislation. It was a direct result of the mayor of Fairhope, her administrator, and staffers, and Senator Jones sitting down and saying, look, we got concerns about the situation and we need help. So, I had somebody come up to me and say, well, you shouldn't have said that about Senator Jones. You're giving him credit for doing this, and why not Bradley Byrne? Well, Mr. Byrne didn't do anything. Mr. Jones did. And I'm not saying, I'm not leaning particularly for one party or another. What I am saying is that this is what got done, and this is what we need. We need desperately to do this with our water quality as well as the sewage. The same thing with the sewer regulation in the county, which has yet to be resolved. But that's a very, very good sign. Let's hope that they really go for it there and can clean up the bay. I know that when I got here in '93, I used to sit down by the bay and I could watch shrimp boats come right in front of the pier. You could hit them with a rock. And now you don't see any shrimp boats. A lot of the fish have moved out. Every one of the municipalities along the shores had problems with pollution. So, this is what has to be done. One city, one place is not going to get it done. So let's hope that these efforts and the communities will cooperate and try to get a handle on the Mobile Bay, along with baykeepers and the other people involved.
All right, so there's one thing I want to talk about, and because I don't understand it.
All right.
So the other day, I talked to you, and you were down at the Fairhope license office, Alabama Law Enforcement Agency driver's license office, right?
Right.
And you were trying to get one of these real ID compliant licenses.
Correct.
So according to the information I have here, effective October 1st, 2020, every air traveler will need a real ID compliant license, what we call a STAR ID, or another form of identification for domestic air travel.
Right.
Okay, so tell me what all I got to take down there to get one of these glorified real IDs.
I don't have that application form in front of me, but I can tell you this. I went 3 times before I got it done. It's state employees that you have to have you have to have in 3 different categories. You have to have one ID of each one of those. So
one of them's like a passport, another one's a birth certificate, consular report of birth abroad, Social Security card, United States military identification card, Medicare identification card, W-2 tax form, voter registration card. Anyway, there are a lot of different things that you must have one of these, and 2 of these. So there are at least 4 documents, and I'm trying to see.
Well, the big thing about this is that there's only 2 or 3 people handling this. So you go there in the morning. I can get there 1 hour before it opens at 7 o'clock, and by the time they open the door, there's 30 or 40 people. They'll sign up 12, tell the other 12 to come back at 1:30. This starts on a Monday. By Friday, they're doing the same thing. They never, ever catch up. Well, this is just the people that are trying to get this STAR license now. I can't even imagine what is going to happen about 6 months from now when everybody finds out, oops, I got to have it. Then the lines are going to be, completely crazy. So I suggest that any of you that are doing any traveling internationally, especially, to go get the license, because you're going to have to do it sooner or later.
So I'm about at the end of my topics, Paul. Do you have anything else you'd like to talk about?
Man, do I ever. All right, here we're in the court of public opinion again. Lanyap last week put out another article, Gabe Times did, and this is Friends Without Benefits. Now, in Fairhope, we have a junior council. And I hope that the junior council is paying attention to what is going on in Fairhope. I hope that maybe they even run a candidate in the 2020 election. I'd like to see the junior council also get behind candidates, trying to encourage candidates to get in the race. But this Friends Without Benefits goes back to this same project, this Gayfer Village Partners, which is the Fairhope Municipal Judge Haynes Snedeker and his business partner, Ray Hicks. Now, Hicks is no stranger to conflicts of interest. As a member of the Airport Authority in 2015, he recused himself from a vote that awarded a 30-year lease to his own company, Mid-Bay Air LLC, for 4 parcels of property at the Sonny Callahan Airport. They later built a hangar, and that hangar was for a supposedly about $1 million jet owned by Mr. Snedeker. Now, here's where you get into the conflict of interest. Mr. Hicks at the time was a board member. He shouldn't have been even anywhere remotely close to trying to get an airplane hangar while he was a board member. Now, what complicated it even further was that the president of the council, Mr. Burrell, was also on the board and the liaison for the airport, and he oversaw the bid process. Now, it's also alleged that Mr. Burrell had a seat in that airplane, was able to go to a golf tournament with Mr. Snedeker and them, and then later on he sits on a bid committee to award a bid. So I would say that would be quite a conflict of interest for him to even vote on this new PUD. In addition to that, Councilman Jay Robinson also has political connections to the Hicks and Snedeker through Colby Cooper, who was formerly the chief of staff for Mobile Mayor Sandy Simpson until his resignation in 2016. Now Cooper is chief operating officer of Hicks Snedeker Companies. But in 2015, Mr. Cooper was also listed as a member of Mr. Robinson's campaign committee and donated $250 to Mr. Robinson. So I see a huge conflict of interest there. Then the article goes on and mentions Kevin Boone and Mr. Boone's conflict of interest as well. So we have now a PUD that is going to be coming up, I suppose, in the next couple of weeks. And this is going to be the Gayfer PUD that the municipal judge and Mr. Snedeker are involved with. We can see that 4 of the city council has conflicts of interest in voting on this. In addition to this, you have to remember that the council appoints the municipal judge. So the municipal judge is appointed by the council, and now the municipal judge is going to bring a project before the council for approval. I asked in Baldwin County, I spoke to 5 separate attorneys, and I asked each one of those attorneys what they thought of that. Each one said that they thought it was a conflict of interest. One judge I spoke to in Mobile told me the same thing. All the attorneys and the judge made it clear to me that they were not going on record. Now, I spoke to another judge, which is a family friend in Birmingham. I just got back from VA up there, and I happened to run into him, and I told him what was going on. And he told me that that probably would not fly in Birmingham at all. And he said the thing that really is going to compound this or make it look even worse is, let's say it's just totally approved. Then every change, anything that happens with that project, everyone is going to be suspicious that there's favoritism given to the project because the judge is involved. So I don't know another. In fact, the judge I spoke to up there said, well, what should happen is the judge should just resign from being a municipal judge, and at least that would clear up that part. I can assure you this is going to fly through council. They're going to have blinders on. They're not going to care one way or another who shows up, who says what. But the citizens of Fairhope, you need to be paying attention. This is not cutting a balloon. This is cutting up Fairhope. So you better pay attention to what's going on. Mentioning Fairhope also, and the council. The council is also being sued the council themselves are being sued by a Fairhope woman over variances for a downtown building. And these are variances that the council approved, and now they've right on top of this woman's property. In fact, part of the project, as I understand, even hangs over the top of it. This is the same council now that I sued in federal court over not allowing me to speak at a city council meeting. The council reluctantly finally had to settle that lawsuit, and now, quite interestingly, I've had 2 or 3 calls from different parts of the United States, people that have been in the same situation, and they are now using this case, the Fairhope case, as a precedent in other cases where people have been denied talking in front of a council. So if a council tells you to shut up and sit down, don't do it.
So it's you and Larry Flint.
That's it. Put us both on the same page, right? You got anything else?
I got a couple
one more
things.
Go ahead.
So just to follow up on something we talked about last time I was here, the Atmore-based Porch Band of Creek Indians has launched a website, and you guys should go check it out. We're going to do a real in-depth discussion on this next time. It's called winningforalabama.com, and it details a plan that would give them exclusive rights to gaming interest except for a lottery. In exchange, the tribe is willing to make a one-time $225 million payment to the state and says it is willing for the tribe to share 25% of the gaming revenues with the state. So, you know, I don't know if it's a good idea, bad idea. This comprehensive plan for gaming in Alabama, they're talking about constructing two more resorts in the northern part of the state with unlimited gaming that includes blackjacks, craps, other table games, sports book, hotel, spa, restaurant, and other amenities. And just so you know, Alabama, Alaska, Hawaii, Nevada, and Utah are the only states that don't have a traditional lottery.
Well, I would, again, I was in Birmingham, and they're running some pretty heavy ads. The Indians are running a very heavy ads on in the Birmingham area. They're calling it $1 billion contribution over time. And, you know, this has been going on since Siegelman's days. What's that, over 20 years ago? And we yet to have a lottery. Everybody drives to the next state to get the lottery. And looking at the totality of it, I'll be honest with you, I would trust the Indians far more than I would our politicians.
Well, how about this? Dale Marsh is looking into it for us.
Oh, God, that just relieves me tremendously.
One more thing I wanted to talk about. The Bay Minette Christmas Fest is going to be December 14th. It's going to be a one-day event. It's usually Friday, Saturday event. This year it's going to be Saturday only. It's going to be back around the square, thank goodness. And get this, hey Nick, just so you know, you got a little tattoo. So we're going to broadcast live from the square during Christmas Fest, and especially during the parade. But you know, check us out that morning. We'll be live streaming. We've talked to Point Broadband about getting us a wireless connection. They provide that here in town, and hopefully they'll come through with that. I'm about out of issues. Oh, one more that we're going to touch on next time as a follow-up. Just so those of you who are following the Alabama Power Company coal ash issue, there's been some new edicts come down from the EPA, and we're going to talk about that. Turns out coal ash is completely harmless. You should put it in your oatmeal in the morning.
All right. One thing I want to go back on is, Harry, you're part of this too. I guess you have been served. I have yet to been served. Go back to the article, writ of mandamus, which was involving the McSharry's case, where Mr. McSharry knocked Paula Donardi off of our stool. That's what started it. And according to the definition of Legal Institute of Cornell Law, the writ of mandamus is an order from a higher court instructing a lower court to, quote, properly fulfill their official duties or to correct an abuse of discretion. Now, that has been sent, and that McDonald is the attorney, Mr. David McDonald, for Paula Donardi. And the petition is a formal request for the state's high court to send it to Judge Stankowski and try to get it straight. And in the interim, Mr. Pittman, who is representing Mr. McSharry, is subpoenaing everybody. I think he wants to come up with some vast conspiracy theory that this is a political movement to go after Mr. McSharry, which it is not, because Mr. McSharry has 4 or 5 convictions, and so now all of us are going to be involved. But
hey, Paul, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Are you going to waive your attorney-client privilege so I can comply with the subpoena?
Absolutely not.
Do you think any of my clients will?
I don't think any of your clients will do it. And
so, what about all communications from November 22nd, 2018 to present between you, whether written, electronic, verbal, or otherwise, and the real kicker in all this is number D. Lanyap or any of its representatives thereof, including any employee or reporter.
Right. And
I think they've got a privilege there.
Well, the co-publisher, Mr. Holbert, has also made it very clear that Mr. Pittman's effort to subpoena Lanyap's email, phone, personal communications, or anything over the past year violate not only the Alabama journalistic source privilege, but also attorney-client privilege. And attorney-client privilege is what certainly is what I will lean on. But I will go as far as to say
you understand that, right? It's not my privilege; it's your privilege.
That's correct. It's my privilege. And the other thing too is, and I'll make this perfectly clear, is that I have a lot of people that call me, and they say, "Can you give me advice on this? Can you give me advice on that?" I had talked to Miss Paula Donardi early on. I didn't know her until this time. I had met her, but I didn't know her. And I told her, I said, well, because I was involved in a incident before with Mr. McSharry where he almost assaulted the artist Nall. That ended up going to court. He was actually on probation during that time when this incident happened. But I told Miss Paula Donardi, as I would anyone, that if you have a complaint, you go to your mayor or you go to your police chief. And one of the things that you need to understand is that if you have an incident, say, but you don't know exactly what to do at that time, but you don't feel comfortable about what happened to you, then call a police officer. Get the police officer to come and tell him that you want to file an incident report. And he will file an incident report and make a record of it. And as I understand it, that's what happened here. So, and I believe that the mayor met with the police chief together with Paula Donardi, and I don't see anything wrong with that. That's what should happen. That is the process that should happen. But anyway, we'll see how it unwinds in court. It should be very interesting. And one thing is for sure, if Mr. Pittman thinks that any type of intimidation is going to slow me down, he's entirely wrong. I'm going to make sure that we cover this to its fullest until the last day. Now, some things that are coming up.
Hey, let me hit on one more thing.
Sure.
So I can't remember what day it was. I think it was Wednesday. I went out to Coastal Alabama Community College and rolled out the red carpet for our new president out there, Dr. Townsley. And anyway, I explained to him that I had been in a similar situation when I was hired to go to work in Etowah County. I moved my family up there. I didn't know anybody. And the mayor of Gadsden, who had been there, he'd been the mayor for 20 years. My second day on the job, called me over to his office and kind of gave me a little lay of the land where the bodies were buried. And as I was leaving, he said, "Now you got to realize I've been mayor here for 20 years.
So he's part of it.
Yeah. And he was like, "Watch out for all this stuff, but you got to understand I might have a little something to do with that too." So anyway, I kind of gave him a little lay of the land, encouraged him to continue to look into this alleged corruption, assured him that if he was there to be the chancellor's hatchet man, that he was not going to have a good time in Baldwin County. And of course, when Dr. Branch was the president out at Coastal or Faulkner, they were very good corporate citizens. They participate in Christmas Fest, anything the chamber puts on. Matter of fact, I think a couple of their board members right now are Coastal faculty. So I hope that continues. I hope that he is here to get back to the business of educating young people, which is what we sorely need in this town. And I don't know that if I've ever verbalized this before, but Bay Minette as a town has many things that a lot of places would covet. We have a hospital, we're the county seat. We have a horse arena. We have the city owns a golf course. We have a community college.
A pretty small population, too.
Right, but we have all these fantastic things. The problem is, because of the damn corruption, none of it's anywhere close to each other. You got a dying downtown. If you'd put one of the 5 things that, you know, down here in your downtown, why in the world would you go out to the middle of nowhere and build a brand new softball complex?
Well, it's the same
that
thing.
Everybody's got to drive to. Nobody can walk to.
Exactly.
You can't ride your bike to.
Same thing we're talking about in Fairhope.
Our horse arena is not in the city limits. It's out in Pine Grove. Our Holly Hills Country Club is damn near in Loxley. It's 15 miles from here, Paul. Of course, the hospital and all these things got located on. You know, well, it's Paul. Hell, you're a good guy. We'll put it on your property this time.
Right. It's exactly like what's going on in Fairhope. You got 3 council people that determined where $2.65 million is going to be spent, and we're going to pay for it. I can assure you. Well, we hope you're going to stay up with us on the podcast coming up. Some of the things that are going to be coming up are going to be, to say the least, controversial. One of them is something that I've been following for years. I mean, I have heard complaint after complaint after complaint about the wharf in Orange Beach. And
I'm totally ignorant. I won't have to get caught up on.
Well, I've had over, I don't know how many conversations. I've gone out there and talked to tenants and everything, and there's over 30 tenants that have left there. What happens is they've been, or what is alleged is that they are lured into signing leases there based on statistics and data that does not exist. They get into some pretty high price leases, invest a good bit of money. All of a sudden they find out, like all of us that live here, that the spigot turns off after Labor Day and they're stuck there with a heavy lease. And then they can't get out of the lease. And then to make things worse, the management has been exercising the lease, even in the termination, and, you know, going after these people for whatever they can do. It's almost predatory. I would encourage anyone as a consumer alert, I would encourage anyone that is going to do thinking about opening any business at the wharf, that you not speak to the real estate agent that's selling you this, but that you speak to the tenants, that you go out there and you talk to the tenants and ask them how it's going and how come there's so many people that have gone in business there that are not there anymore. What is the explanation? You don't have that many businesses come and go. Then some of them are allowed to leave and break the lease. Some are sued. Some are taken to court. Everybody is treated a little bit differently. I can see the issue with the wharf blowing up in everybody's face, and we're going to be covering it in the future. The other thing that we're going to be covering, and we've already interviewed a couple of people on this, is the infamous Judge Thomason and the family court. We're going to have a show that's dedicated to the family court in Baldwin County. And I can assure you that there is nothing more upsetting or disgusting to have to talk about than the family court. What I am asking today, and I'm going to put this on the Facebook page too, is anybody that is interested in coming in and sharing their experiences with us that has had the displeasure of being in Judge Thomason's court, we'd like to hear from you. However, we do realize that a lot of people that want to speak are still in court, and they can't speak because they jeopardize their own case. Now, the thing that disturbs me is I know of numerous cases where these people are in divorce court for 9, 10, 15 years. I can't understand what is going on. This is over child custody or whatever. And how can it just be going on and on? So we'll be delving into that. And I think you'll find that very interesting. The last thing is it's a small world, and Harry just bumped into somebody that knew Mr. John McAfee. McAfee is the person who ran from police, suspected of murder. Very, very, very colorful individual. And he also was featured on a Showtime presentation, one that I was in, and I helped. In fact, I went out and sought a production company to follow it. After the third time, I was able to get with Nanette Bernstein with Showtime, and the movie is called Gringo, The Dangerous Life of John McAfee. So you might want to go watch the movie. A little bit of warning there. It can get pretty graphic, but we'll be coming back and talking about Bitcoin and other things that are related to it. The last we've heard of Mr. McAfee is that he was in a Dominican Republic and got popped with guns and ammo. What in the world he is doing in Dominican Republic with weapons, I don't know, but it'll be an interesting feature. But if you get a chance, see if you can find the movie Gringo, The Dangerous Life of John McAfee, and we'll fill you in on the details. You'll find it very interesting. It's not has anything to do with politics around here, but we'll break that monotony. So I want to thank you today for listening to us, and hopefully we'll be back here next Friday.
I want to talk about one more thing.
Sure.
The Baldwin County Bar Association. Since the sheriff has suspended my access to the courthouse or without being searched, I don't know how exactly you want to say it, I must go through security. Not one person from the Baldwin County Bar Association has called me, emailed me, written me a letter, done anything in support. Well, I mean, a few people have talked to me in private, but you got to understand, we don't want any record of any of this. When you're on the outs, especially with the most powerful politician in Baldwin County. And the other thing, we have 2 family court judges running unopposed. No one qualified against them last Friday. I mean, what do you think about that, Paul? I mean, not substantively, it's just, but the fact that they're running unopposed in a, you know, it's like the old days of the Democratic Party back when in the 50s, you know, whoever the Democrat was got elected, and down here, whoever the Republican is going to win this election. And
the attorneys and judges in Baldwin County know the record of Judge Thomason. They know there has been. I'm not talking
about any particular judge. I'm just saying.
I am.
No one is opposing any of these people, and I don't think it's good for democracy.
No, it's not good. It's the same thing with sheriff or anything else. It's not a slap against the sheriff or anything, but I don't think anybody should be in there any more than 2 terms. As soon as you get in there over 2 terms, the possibility of corruption gains momentum every single term that you're in there. But in the case of Judge Thomason, one that will light up my email site and my social media sites right away. If I start talking about family court, the phones start ringing immediately. But yet here we have another election, totally unopposed, just going to walk right in. We're going to have the same amount of problems. And I don't know. I'm disappointed in what's the same thing I was telling you a minute ago with the conflict of interest. I spoke to 2 judges and 5 attorneys. All 7 of them said, "Don't quote me now. Don't use my name." Here we are again. We got, you know, they know that there's a problem with Judge Thomason, but nobody wants to say anything, so we're just going to let her walk in there again. Unopposed.
And I kept getting, you know, people couldn't figure out why in the world we were doing this podcast, and they thought maybe I had some political ambitions, and that's why this is kind of a joke back here. I ran for city council in Bay Minette and got beat by an old guy on a walker 2-1. I don't think politics is in the cards for me.
Well, politics certainly not in the cards for me. People ask me all the time, why don't I run for office? And I'll tell you, the reason I don't run for office is that I do far more good in the position that I am in questioning those that do run for office and those that are in office. You know, you can participate one way or another. My participation is in the court of public opinion. I plan on giving the court of public opinion the voice, And I believe that that voice is going to be heard in Baldwin County sooner or later.
Or in Auburn this weekend. You're going to be screaming War Eagle, right?
Oh, well, I'm not that big a football fan. I don't care who cuts the balloon.
I hear you. Well, that's it for us today. Thanks for joining us. That's number 11 in the can. We'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.